Hey everybody, this is Bill. It's that time of year again, and in this video, we're talking college football. Now, we will provide for you a link in the description to our preseason top 25 and All-America team for you to check out. But in this video, we will offer the predicted finish and a small preview of the Big Ten Conference. The conference appears to have a couple of national championship contenders, and both divisions have highly competitive looks to them. So let's check it out, starting with the East. So we have Rutgers picked 7th in the East, but that should not be an indication the Scarlet Knights are some kind of pushover. Quite the contrary. Now Rutgers needs an offensive spark, so they will look to Gavin Wimsatt at quarterback, replacing the capable but often injured Noah Vedral, who's a 2-year starter. He is capable. Now transfers abound on the offensive line, and 4 of the top 5 receivers return, so there's optimism. The secondary is the strength of the defensive unit, and that returns 5 of their top 7 tacklers from 2021. So this team is going to play games tough, and they just do not appear to have enough firepower to figure in the division. Coming in 6th in the East, we have Indiana. Now, after a pair of decent seasons for Coach Tom Allen, last season the pre-ranked Hoosiers got bombed early at Iowa and collapsed to finish 2-10. The only positive of the season was a wild early win at Western Kentucky. So what can we expect from the Hoosiers in 2022? Well, Missouri transfer Connor Bazelak comes in to play quarterback, and Auburn transfer Sean Shivers comes to play running back. Now that's going to help, but there are still some big holes on the offensive side. Now DJ Matthews is decent, he's back at the slot receiver, and the line does have some experience. Now over on the defensive side, they are led by Tywan Mullen, who's an outstanding cornerback. We look for Bradley Jennings Jr., who's a transfer from Miami, to start at middle linebacker and make a difference there. Now, while this schedule's favorable, the Hoosiers have some pieces, but not the quality depth needed to contend in this division. At 5th, we have Maryland. For several of the past few seasons, Maryland has had plenty of talent, but they never seem to coach it up on Saturday, at least consistently. Could the maturation of Taulia Tagovailoa get them over the hump? Hey, 9 offensive starters return, and top wideout Jacob Copeland, a Florida Gator transfer, arrives to help. So Maryland's going to score plenty of points. Now on defense, replacing safety Nick Cross is going to be tough for the Terps. But they do have a slew of their top 21 tacklers coming back, including stellar defensive tackle Mosiah Nasel Kite. That guy is really tough inside. Now the schedule is favorable, and we think Maryland's very dangerous. So the Terps, they can upset a team or two, and they can reach toward the top of the division, but it just doesn't seem that there's enough there for them to really seriously contend. But watch out for the Terps. We have Penn State 4th, and we consider them somewhat difficult in terms of assessment in 2022. Now, Sean Clifford is back at quarterback, and at times he's looked very good, but he also has looked pedestrian for periods, and he's not been healthy often. Can he put in a quality performance all year long? Now, leading rusher Kevon Lee is back, but a lot of people have their eyes on a young guy, Nick Singleton, so we'll watch that develop. Now, Parker Washington's a fantastic receiver, and they've got a transfer from Western Kentucky coming in, Michael Tinsley. People are looking for that to be a dynamic duo for the Lions. Now, the offensive line is not the typical Penn State strong, so keep note of that. On defense, they've got 2 potential All-America players in defensive tackle P.J. Mustipher and safety Joey Porter. But they only bring back 4 total starters. So there are some questions on the stop side. Now, the Lions can roar, and they do have an interesting game to open with Purdue that we're going to be watching very closely. But we simply think there are too many holes on this team for them to advance up much higher in the division than, say, 3rd or 4th, kind of where we have them. Michigan State is 3rd in our rankings. Now, the Spartans had a big season in 2021. They were 11-2. They surprised a ton of people, including me. But lingering in the success was an eye-opening 51-7 loss at Ohio State. So that tells us that there is still work to be done. Now, Mel Tucker has some nice pieces on offense to work with. Quarterback Peyton Thorne, he's got some limitations, but this guy made plays when he had to in directing all those wins for Michigan State. Now, he should be improved, in fact, this fall. Now, Jarek Broussard, who was a workhorse standout in the Pac-12 at Colorado, comes over to play running back. Additionally, Jalen Berger, who shined at Wisconsin, is also in at running back. So there's some talent there for Tucker to work with. Spartan wideout Jaden Reed, who was third-team All-Big last year, is ready to become a household name. Don't forget, Reed is also among the nation's best in the return game. Now, the offensive line, typically strong at Michigan State, is a bit of a work in progress. The defense is pretty stout. They're housing a talented, experienced secondary led by Xavier Henderson. Now, we have Michigan State ranked 17th nationally, and while the Spartans have quality all over the place, we just don't consider them deep enough to be a viable candidate to win the division. But they're a good football team. They will go bowling, and Tucker is doing an excellent job. Second, we have Michigan. Now, Michigan was a surprise conference champion in 2021, with almost everyone but the most faithful Michigan man having given up on the Wolverines. All the pieces of the puzzle came together for a special season, with Michigan smashing mighty Ohio State going away, then thumping Iowa to win the Big Ten Conference Championship and secure themselves a college football playoff spot. Now, for 2022, offensively, Michigan, although they lost their offensive coordinator, they won't miss a beat. Two outstanding quarterbacks give Michigan plenty of offensive opportunities. Cade McNamara is the projected starter. He's coming off a stellar campaign with 2,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. Five-star J.J. McCarthy has an arsenal of big plays, as we've already seen. So Michigan's quite comfortable with either or both. Now, Blake Corum is outstanding. He ran for just under 1,000 yards last year, and he's ready to go. But a lot of people got their eye on sophomore Donovan Edwards, so Michigan's running attack should be very strong. The offensive line is stellar. Now, the receiving corps is really explosive, and they've got some great people coming in there. Now, the defense also lost their coordinator, but they're going to be very strong. Up front, they've got great starters. Mazzie Smith is highly regarded. Chris Jenkins, Mike Morris, they all have big potential. Junior Colson is an All-America potential at linebacker. They've got some great players ready to go. Now, the secondary is kind of the weak spot of the team, but this is Michigan. They've got some great players there. So, listen, folks, we have Michigan 5th nationally. We think the Wolverines will win 10 games. Their schedule is very favorable, but we do think they lose at Ohio State this year and come in second in the East. Winning the East are the Ohio State Buckeyes, who we have as a national championship contender. Now, C.J. Stroud is back at quarterback. He threw for over 4,400 yards, completing 70% of his throws with 44 touchdowns against only 6 interceptions. Now, Stroud could elevate his game, if you can imagine that. And given the talent on hand, consider him a Heisman candidate once again. At running back is the talented Travion Henderson. This guy is going to be a National Honors finalist here in 2022. Now, Ohio State has perhaps the nation's top group of receivers, led by consensus All-America player Jackson Smith-Njigba, who led the Buckeyes in receiving last year. He had a career day in the Rose Bowl. Many of you may have seen that like I did. Marvin Harrison is another honors candidate at the position. The offensive line, led by tackle Paris Johnson, an All-America candidate, is outstanding. There were some deficiencies last year for the defensive unit at Ohio State, but the group has a chance to be very strong this season as 9 of the top 10 tacklers from 2021 return. Now, Jim Knowles comes over from Oklahoma State to take over this defensive unit, and he's got to love what he's got to work with. Zach Harrison is an All-America candidate at the end spot there up front. Tommy Eichenberg was second in stops in 2021. He's expected to challenge for conference honors at linebacker. And the secondary is extremely strong. 21 top tackler Ronnie Hickman is back at safety, and they've got Denzel Burke over on the corner spot. So they've got some great players. Now, if Ohio State can get by Notre Dame early, and we think they do, they should be undefeated hosting Michigan, who's once again going to be good. But the game is at the Horseshoe. With the offense we expect to see from Ohio State, along with an improved defensive unit, we see Ohio State running the table, beating the West entrant in the Big Ten title game easily and securing themselves a spot in the college football playoff. So it's Ohio State in the East. Now let's get over to check out the Western Division in the Big Ten, where it seems there are 5 teams that have a chance to win it. Now in the rear in 7th, we have Northwestern, but do not take the Wildcats lightly. When you least expect Northwestern to challenge, they often do. You only have to go back to 2018 to find them in the Big Ten championship game. Now this does not look like a team that fits that mold, but Pat Fitzgerald can work some magic. Now 9 starters are back offensively, and we got Ryan Helinski slated to start at quarterback. The top rushers return, and as does much of the receiving corps. Offensive tackle Peter Sloronsky is an All-America player, outstanding, going to be an NFL draft pick, and their whole line is pretty experienced. If they could get some decent quarterback play, they can score some points. Now, only 5 starters are back from a defensive unit that played poorly last year, and their best player hit the transfer portal. But there are some decent players in the secondary, and one all-conference candidate on the line and at linebacker. We don't see the firepower, but as usual, the Cats are dangerous. Beating Nebraska in the opener in Ireland would help get the Wildcats some confidence to take into the season with them. In 6th, we have Illinois. Now be careful here. Illinois upset Nebraska, Penn State, and Minnesota last year. And we know Brett Bielema can coach. So there's no reason to think Illinois can't dump somebody else this season. So Syracuse transfer Tommy DeVito, who's been pretty decent when healthy, he's hoping to hold off Artur Sikowski at quarterback. Now leading rusher Chase Brown is back, as are the top 2 pass catchers from last season. On defense, they tightened up considerably last season statistically, and they returned their top 2 tacklers, but there are some holes to fill. Bielema's, he's working on it here in Champaign. Now the non-conference schedule is tough, along with Michigan and Michigan State from the East. So while the record might not show it, we look for Illinois to continue to improve. Now given Illinois thumped Northwestern last year, we're going to place them just ahead of the Wildcats in our pecking order for this season. As we arrive at the 5th position, we need to note that we could make a case for just about any order of finish among these next teams. But factoring it all in, we're going to settle in with Purdue at 5th. Now it should be noted the Boilers lost their top player on offense and defense to the NFL, but they do return top quarterback Aiden O'Connell. He has 2 receivers that are transferring in from Iowa to throw to, but beyond that there's limited experience. Now the offensive line is pretty doggone good. Several key defensive players are gone, but 4 of the top 6 tacklers return, including safety Cam Allen. There are holes, but with O'Connell slinging the ball around for Jeff Brom, there are enough pieces to be dangerous, so we would highly advise you not taking these Boilers lightly. Now, an early home game win against Penn State could kick off the season with a bang for the Boilers. We have Minnesota 4th, 6th-year quarterback Tanner Morgan, potential All-America running back Mohamed Ibrahim, and a slew of underrated receivers who are returning make Minnesota very dangerous and a solid contender in the Big Ten West. They appear set to score some points. Now, the Gophers did lose a lot up front, but they do return an outstanding center in John Michael Smits, who could be an All-America candidate. 3 of the top 4 tacklers return on defense, and Trill Carter's a very good player up front. However, perhaps most importantly, for the Gophers, the schedule is somewhat favorable. Now, Minnesota should breeze their non-con before having a road game at Sparty. They're also on the road at Penn State. Divisionals, Purdue, and Iowa are at home, while they're on the road at Nebraska and Wisconsin. Don't overlook Minnesota. These Gophers could be trouble. They were pretty doggone good last year, and Fleck has got these guys going, so keep your eye on them. We have Iowa 3rd, although they may land here via a tiebreaker. Once again, the Hawkeyes will be exactly who you expect them to be. A team that is strong on the lines, plays it close to the vest with strong defense, and a team that does not make many mistakes. In fact, they capitalize on your mistakes and to make you play their game. Now, offensively, quarterback Spencer Petras is back, And he's a solid game manager. Yeah, he's just that. He's not, he's not going to win you big numbers, but he manages the game pretty well. Sam Laporta is an All-America candidate at tight end. But a bunch of skill talent position was lost for the Hawkeyes. Now, potential All-America players are back on the stop side in inside linebacker Jake Campbell and cornerback Riley Moss, who is the only returning starter in the secondary. So they've got some great players on defense. The schedule is favorable. The Hawks should be 4-0 before hosting Michigan, and we all know how Iowa can play at home at night. So look out, Michigan. Ohio State, Purdue, and Minnesota are on the road, while divisional foes Wisconsin and Nebraska are at home. So while Iowa, we don't expect them to be rivaling Alabama or anything, very solid once again. Don't make mistakes. They'll be right where they always are at the end, and that's factoring in the Big Ten West. We have Wisconsin, second in the Big Ten West and ranked 25th nationally. The Badgers are the poster child for plug and play, having done it for decades. But this season, it might be more of a significant challenge. Wisconsin has rarely had outstanding quarterback play, relying for the most point on field generals, signal callers who efficiently direct the offense, minimizing errors and depending upon their great running game. Now this year, Graham Mertz returns at quarterback for Wisconsin, but significant improvement is needed. Mertz had an unfavorable touchdown to interception ratio last year, so they need improvement there. The offensive line is not up to Badger standards, but still better than the majority of the country. Wisconsin once again has an All-America candidate in Braylon Allen at running back, and there's a bunch of talent behind him. But the receiving core lacks proven experience. Now defensively, only 4 starters return, but defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard is really got it going there defensively for the Badgers. Up front, they're strong as usual. They've got a great nose tackle in Keanu Benton, and he was a terror last year. The linebacking core is depleted, but there are some hosses there for sure. Outside linebacker Nick Herbig is among them. Now, they got a great player at safety in John Torchio. He makes plays. He's an honors candidate as well. But the rest of the secondary is a little sketchy. They're young, inexperienced. Now, Wisconsin has a light non-con, but they open league play at Ohio State. They also play at Michigan State. Purdue early and Minnesota late are at home, with Iowa and Nebraska slated in back-to-back road tilts. Now, we think the Badgers just do not have enough overall firepower to win the division, but until we see otherwise, consider them a very tough out as always. Winning the Western Division this year, we have Nebraska. If not now, when? The time is now. The Huskers made significant changes with the assistant coaching staff, with 2 key newcomers. Mickey Joseph, a former Husker quarterback from the recruiting hotbed of Louisiana, comes over from LSU, and veteran play caller Mark Whipple comes in from Pitt, where his quarterback made Heisman finalists last year. And perhaps most importantly, though, Nebraska has veteran Bill Bush taking over on the special teams, which were abysmal last year. Now, can Frost and Nebraska rise up after these and other changes? Perhaps. Texas transfer quarterback Casey Thompson has a capable receiving core headlined by LSU transfer Trey Palmer. The running back room is top-notch. The offensive line is where the improvement is needed. They do have talent, so we'll see what happens there. Now, the Huskers were very good on defense last year, and we expect much of the same. Garrett Nelson on the edge, along with Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer, they all appear to be honors candidates. The secondary is decent and has good depth. Now, a major upgrade in the special teams is mandatory, and this appears to be more than adequately addressed through the portal. Now, Nebraska faces Northwestern in Ireland. It may be the most important game Nebraska's played in a decade. They've got to win it. Then Oklahoma comes to town. Nebraska then travels to Michigan late. Those are 2 games they'll be decided underdogs in. Now, they have a tough road game at Purdue, and they do close at Iowa. But Minnesota and Wisconsin are at home. We think all these changes are going to mesh, and we think Nebraska gets the breaks that they normally don't get. So we're projecting the Huskers to win the division in tie-breaking fashion. So there you have it. We have Nebraska facing Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, where the Buckeyes will win by at least 2 touchdowns en route to the college football playoff. So leave us some comments on how you see this conference shaking out. Is the West a roll of the dice as we see it? And do you think Michigan can possibly repeat by beating Ohio State again? We would love to hear your thoughts. We're going to provide a link to our preseason top 25 and All-America team for you down in the description. Please feel welcome to follow us on Facebook. We're at The Color and Pageantry. We invite you to like the video and subscribe to our page. And more importantly, we want to thank you for watching. Nebraska and Northwestern, week 0 in Ireland, and then Penn State and Purdue on the following Thursday night as the Big Ten kicks off. We can't wait. See you next time.